Hello, and welcome to this asynchronous recruiter webinar for our virtual Meet the Firms, which is going to be on January 23rd, 2024 through the Career Fair Plus app. I am joined by the Grinch. He'll be poking his head in every now and then. So I hope to help you understand more how to use the system if you're unfamiliar. And the great news for our veterans is that there's really not any new features to learn. Everything should be as it was in the spring if you are a returning Career Fair Plus user. So why do we have a virtual fair? I know that it seems like kind of, in a post-pandemic world, why would we have to use this kind of functionality of doing virtual meetings for a career fair when we can gather in person safely? But there's actually a lot of reasons that we've chosen to do this. And the first one is that we get better participation. We have better participation from students who are still going through the recruiting process, as well as professionals. And we're able to pull in professionals from farther away. So we might have alums in New York that want to have a schedule for students who want to go to New York and they otherwise wouldn't be traveling to campus. So that's a great kind of feature of this kind of fair. We also have seen so many shifts in our recruiting timeline that we feel like this is the best modality for the population of students that are still internship seeking. So, I'm sure that all of you have noticed that there's been an uptick of acceptances of fall semester juniors. And so the population of internship seekers is naturally going to be a little smaller. And because we have a crop of new recruits, i.e. sophomores, this is a great way for them to kind of enter this recruiting process, knowing who they're going to meet with, knowing that they're going to have 10 or 15 minutes of uninterrupted conversation, knowing they don't have to walk into a room with 500 people. It's just a less nerve-wracking entrance into the process for those students that are brand new. It's also very expensive to host an in-person fair, and we appreciate your sponsorships. We appreciate your support of our chapter. And this is the best way for us to conserve our financial resources and make sure that they're put to the best use. And just for all these reasons mentioned, we feel that the virtual fair is the best route to take. It also shows students how we interact in a virtual environment. And that's just the business world today. We have in-person meetings, we have meetings that we're going to do on Teams or Zoom. And I think they have to learn how to do both, and they have to learn how to communicate effectively through both. And that's why I like having the fall in person and the spring virtual. So that's just an explanation of why we do this, just in case we're the only school that you're recruiting from that is taking this approach. It's not, just because of the pandemic. Okay, so getting started, I am going to give you a walkthrough of how to use Career Fair Plus, but just to kind of high level go through what is involved in your profile and how to build schedules. I'll kind of talk through it and then I'll show you. So on your exhibitor profile, you are going to have a mobile app option of looking at what the students see, or you can also look at on a desktop. There's a feature within your kind of login that'll say, look at my exhibitor profile, and you'll be able to see what students see. And that's really important to know that what they see is what you want them to see, and what they're reading is what you want them to read. That information, for the most part, is importing from Handshake. And I'll show you at the very end what profile data is coming through. You're going to have some of your registration survey questions that are coming through. A logo. Sometimes these are not the logo that you prefer, and that's because the Career Fair Plus bot is searching your website for something that it can use. And for example, there's one exhibitor that continuously has to send me a new logo because the bot always finds the wrong one. So I'm happy to update this if it's not the logo that you prefer. And you can also enhance your booth. There's plenty of options for customizing your fields, adding more information. I'm happy to do that if it's not something that's directly importing over from Handshake. So you can email me with text or logo updates. There is a video intro option, and that is done through a survey that Career Fair Plus monitors. So you can add, if there's a video that you had produced to tell more about your firm or company, you can have that added by Career Fair Plus. I don't think that there's a way for either of us, you or I, to add that ourselves. So when you access, you are going to have an email from Career Fair Plus if you're a new user. Now, if you're a returning user, you are not going to get that kind of access email with new user instructions, but you are probably very familiar, and it will be easy to log in and kind of go from there. Note that the supported browsers are Chrome and Firefox, and you can bookmark the login page, which is app.careerfairplus.com. So you're going to go to the employer login, you're entering the email address that is associated with your account, and you should see a fair under your fairs heading that says Auburn Spring 2024 Virtual Meet the Firms. So through this page, you will be able to edit your profile. You can add a photo or upload a new one. You're going to add a LinkedIn URL as well. That's the best way for students to kind of know who they're booking with, is to be able to check your LinkedIn profile. So I would definitely recommend linking straight to that. And I do recommend downloading that app, because you will be able to see what the students see. You'll be able to monitor your schedules from anywhere. You don't have to log on a desktop. So it will really kind of make things a lot easier if you can access that quickly through your mobile app. So you'll see that upcoming fair of Spring 2024. You're going to click into that, and that is where you're going to see all the options to customize your booth. You have to be added as a team member to see this. So even though you might be a returning Career Fair Plus user, you might already have an account with them. If you are not added as a team member for this particular fair, you're not going to see that fair. So just note that for adding your team, if there's somebody that you are like, oh, they participated last year, I know that they have an account already, so they should be good to go. They're not, unless you specifically add them to this fair. So you will see all of the schedules for your organization on your page, and it will prioritize according to the schedules that you own. And the date and time, again, of the event is January 23rd, 2024. And you will be able to, when you're creating your schedules, you're going to be able to select your interaction type and your schedule type. You're also going to choose assigned recruiters for each schedule. And then when you log into the schedules, you're going to see a join meeting button. That's for the day of the event, but we want you to test it in advance. There's a new option to add it to your calendar. So let's say you have a person that's going to hop into one of your rooms. You know that this candidate that's booked on there is interested in their particular office, and you want to have two of y'all in the room with them, but you want to make sure that they have the join link and the appropriate time to join. Then you can add that to your calendar and also share that with others. So the schedule options we're going to dive into more, and then downloads will allow you to download all of the student information across schedules. And if they have uploaded a resume, you're going to be able to access the resumes through hyperlink within that download. So I know that's a lot, and if you've never logged into the system, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to show you how this works, and I'm going to just briefly exit from my presentation. You can see the Grinch is still with me. So you should be able to now see that I have logged in to Career Fair Plus already, just for time's sake, and I can see my upcoming fair. For the purposes of this demonstration, I have to use the virtual demo fair. I can't use the Auburn fair, but yours would say Auburn University Virtual Meet the Firms. So when we log in here, you can see this blue bar of what can we help you get done today. You see that create the schedule creation option. You see that option to download interactions. You see the option to invite another recruiter and to edit your own profile. So I'm going to kind of go through these in reverse order, and then we'll look at the rest. But when I edit my profile, I probably do need a new photo. I've had a new photo taken since I've had this profile created, but just make sure it's populated and complete. And you have also included your LinkedIn profile, because that is definitely important to the students to know who they're booking with. And then when we go back we can go to the invite another recruiter. So once our profile is complete, that's when we're equipped to then, invite our teammates. And you can see that there are existing recruiters. So I know who's already in here. So again, if somebody's participated in the past, then if you don't see their name in here, you need to add them to this event. So you can just invite them by their email. Make sure it's the email that they want to be associated with all of our communications, because that's the email when we're running reports, that's what's going to show up. So I can invite any recruiter with a new email. I don't need any other information. They don't need any login, unlike some other career fair sites like our virtual career fair tools like Handshake, for example. They have to have a profile in Handshake to even be added. But this, you just add their email and they minimally populate that short little profile, and then they're ready for action. So then this download all interactions, that's after candidates book that you would be able to use this. So you can see it goes into my downloads and it's my schedules, and those are by tab. So if I have 6 different schedules, it'll have 6 different tabs, and it will have candidate information, including a link to a resume if you want to create kind of a resume book. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a way to download a resume book. It's kind of standalone, but should be pretty easy to get them from your report once you have bookings. And then I'll show you how to create a schedule. So this is all what has been created. So you can see, I see all my schedules first. I've created a bunch because I've done this demonstration a lot. So the one we're going to look at for today is this Montgomery audit and tax one. So I'll show you how to create a schedule, and I'll kind of walk you through the high level overview first. So let me get back to our presentation. And so schedule creation, that's under that blue bar that I just showed you. And you can create a schedule, you can download those interactions, you can edit your profile. But when you're creating a schedule, you're customizing a lot of different information. Not the day, of course, our fair is at a specified time on January 23rd from 4 to 8 p.m. But you will be able to even set your appointment duration. If you really only feel like students need 10 minutes with you, then you can go ahead and change that preset 15 minutes to be 10 minutes. But make sure that you're applying any changes that you're making that are not kind of those default settings. But you do not need to customize the date, that's static. And then additional instructions, the only time I would change these is if you are opting for your own personal video room. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but you'll have the option of adding a Teams link or adding a Zoom link if you prefer that tool to the one that's integrated that's called Whereby. That's totally personal preference, but that's the only time that you would change your additional instructions. So your schedule availability is customizable. That's another great thing about having a virtual fair is you do not have to participate for 4 full hours. You can have just 1 hour that you're available for bookings. You could have 30 minutes that you're available for bookings, and you can have, schedules that might accommodate the full 4 hours, but every individual person has that freedom to say, no, I want to be able to put my kids to bed. I'm not going to be able to take calls at 7 p.m., that kind of thing. So make it work for you. And that's the nice thing is you can block off times that you do not want to be meeting with candidates. So you can show appointments in your time zone, and that will help if you're not on Central Time as you're creating your availability, because I know sometimes that gets dicey with, okay, are we on Eastern, are we on Central, and you can toggle that. So those radio buttons about that are next to each time slot, those can be switched on and off to block or unblock those time slots. So again, you want to block if you don't want students to book after 7 p.m. If you don't want to have that last hour of availability, then just block all those times from 7 to 8. So you are going to be able to fully customize your availability up until the booking window opens on January 16th. But once students book, it's a little harder for you to make changes without potentially canceling a student. So you do want to update the duration of your appointment times if you want more than the preset increments. But I would caution you to go longer than 15 minutes, just because that might start feeling more like an interview and not a meet the firms interaction. So we want this to be kind of the first step in a long line of interactions with this candidate, and we don't want to spend so much time with them in the first meeting that it feels like they're just meeting you and interviewing in one sitting. And you can select some prereqs. They're not as helpful as maybe they once were. I think that they've maybe made some of them a little more generic. So we can no longer filter by a accounting major. Business is the only thing I can find on there. So that's, really broad, but if you want to go ahead and say that, then that's okay. You can filter by work authorizations. If you are not, if you're not able to hire a student that requires a visa sponsorship, then you can go ahead and say that they need to be legally authorized to work in the United States. And then anything else. So you could say, even have a pre-screening question of, are you an accounting major? Like they have to answer that before they book with you. And that could be a way to filter by just the accounting students. So you want to name your schedules according to which candidates should book with you, because when they're looking at a schedule, they need to know, like, is this meet with a tax manager, or is this meet with an audit partner, or is this like, hey, learn about summer, open house opportunities, whatever, however you want to divide this up to allow students to best connect with you is totally up to you. I would just say be consistent and having one person create all your schedules so it looks cohesive across one organization. So you can call it Atlanta Audit, or you could just call it tax. Maybe you're just a single location and don't need to say where you are, although students may not know where you are unless you specify. So maybe you're an Atlanta local firm, but the students might not know that. So don't be too prescriptive. Don't kind of make it so specific that you're not going to have any bookings on a schedule. And definitely don't call your meetings an interview, because they're meetings and they're not meant to be an interview. Hopefully they'll turn into an interview down the road of this recruiting process, but not during Meet the Firms. So, this was just an example. Book an appointment to speak to national tax professionals. We will talk to all various levels of a student. So anything, just kind of encourage students that are seniors down to sophomores to book with this schedule. And make sure that if you are booking or blocking certain times, like let's say you are only doing the schedule from 6 to 7 p.m., that put that in the schedule title so a student knows, like, they're only clicking in that if that's a time that they're looking for a booking. Because if they don't realize that and they try to book and then they're like, oh shoot, this is all blocked off during the time I need, then that's not as efficient of a booking process. So make sure that you are assigning it to a recruiter definitely by the time the students are going to start seeing this in January, because the students are not going to book on a schedule where they don't know who the owner is. So make sure that similarly your team members are joining and filling out their profiles, because they may be a schedule owner, but they might not have any information populated other than maybe, their email, and that might hinder students feeling comfortable with booking. So you can also have multiple recruiters in a room. Let's say you have an on-campus person that you want to kind of add some color about the internship that they did with you. They can be in one of those rooms with another professional. We don't want those kinds of students to own a schedule necessarily. We think it's really important that full-time professionals are owning schedules. But if you wanted to kind of have that, like, broad, spectrum of experience, then that would be the way to do it, because you can have up to 4 people in one-on-one chat room. So even though it says 1-to-1, it could be 4-to-1 or 3-to-1. I'm sorry. So one recruiter should set up all your schedules just for consistency's sake. So you're going to see a schedule options button that shows you the availability to share your room access. Let's say you do want to have that on-campus person that's helping, or maybe you're having technical difficulties and you have to ping somebody that is a colleague saying, hey, I need you to take this for me, or I've had something come up, can you take over? Then they wouldn't even need a login. Like, they just need to have the link to that room. So when you manage your schedules, you can edit the details, you can edit your time slots. So let's say something comes up and you had initially said, I'm available the full 4 hours, and then somebody puts a conference call in your calendar at 4, then you can go back and then subsequently block that 4 to 5 time frame. Although I would only recommend doing this before the student booking window opens on January 16th, because then you might have students that are impacted if you have to block something and you have to get them to move and all that. So, but you can ask them to move. You can't move them. I can't move them. We just have to cancel them from the schedule and tell them why we're canceling them and to book on a different schedule. So there is an option of group rooms, which have kind of been met with not as strong feedback that's super positive, but what I envision a group room to be used for, if you choose to use it, is a recruiter sitting there to field questions where students don't need an appointment to talk to them. So they've talked to their professional, they've talked to the tax professional they wanted to talk to, and then they have some questions that are more logistical in nature, then to allow that tax professional to stay on schedule and not encroach into the next booking time, then the candidate could pop into the group room where the recruiter is waiting and ask those questions. So a group room is unlocked, so you do not need an appointment. You have to, if you set the duration to be for 2 hours for this group room, you have to be in there. You can't block times in a group room, and you cannot book any appointments. It's just come and go as you please. So that is something that you would have to set upon schedule creation. You cannot create a one-to-one schedule and subsequently modify it to be a group room. So the web-based demonstration for this is just to go back to that page and share more about these schedules that you see here and how they got created. So I'm going to go to create a schedule. So I think this is all pretty user-friendly, and I can pick out of my existing team members who I want to assign it to, or maybe I'm like, oh, I forgot to add Bob to this, so I can add him as a new recruiter, or I could leave it recruiterless if I'm setting it up before I even know who my participants are. So for this one, I'm just going to say it's me. And again, this is where you have to choose if it's a one-on-one or a group. This is not something that you can subsequently change. We can delete schedules. So if you create a one-on-one and then you're like, no, I think I want this to be a group, then you can delete the one-on-one and then make a group schedule. So one-on-one is the preferred means of all these interactions for Meet the Firm. So that's what we're going to select. And we're going to call this whatever schedule name we want. So let's say this is Mobile Audit. And we want to give it a description that allows students to understand who should be booking on this schedule. Book on this schedule to meet one of our Mobile Audit professionals. All levels of students are welcome. And that way, maybe they're like, I don't know if I want an internship or if I'm a summer leadership candidate. Like sophomores probably don't have that level of awareness. So that's where you can maybe help them kind of figure out, is this for me? That schedule date is not going to change because we only have one day for Meet the Firms. You now have the option of choosing a video room that is the Career Fair Plus issued video room, or this external link, the Zoom, Skype, whatever your preferred. So if you choose the external link, you have to then put the link to that room in the additional instructions. Otherwise, if you're using the Career Fair Plus video room, then you're just going to leave those additional instructions as is. And this is where I can modify my time slot duration. I can view it in the fair time zone or my time zone, and toggle the blocks. You can see those radio buttons we talked about, like, nope, I'm not available, I've got a call, or I want to build in a break for myself, and so forth. So that is totally customizable based on your schedule. We have the prereqs that we can add. Again, the major is not super helpful. All we can choose here is business. or in this fair at least, there might be more functionality in the Meet the Firms one. That's one I can't see yet. And then you could do the work authorizations, or you could ask that question of, are you an accounting major? So don't make these too prescriptive. Again, in a real in-person fair, students would walk up to you and not have any kind of filter on, other than they're an accounting major if they're there. We know that Meet the Firms just has accounting majors, but you're not going to be able to filter by work authorization in a real fair. So you might just want to allow candidates that want to meet with you, and then filter everything from there and engage the students that you feel are the best candidates for your jobs. So then you can preview kind of what it's going to look like. It says available, locked, and so forth. You do not have to be available that full 4 hours. Do not feel like you have to be chained to a desk for 4 hours. It's just, we have set that time frame for everyone's flexibility to make sure that everyone has a meaningful amount of time that they can participate and that fits their schedule. So then I would publish the schedule, but I'm not going to, just to keep the schedules that I have to a minimum. So then you would see that show up under your schedules on your page. So getting back to the presentation, when you're accessing candidate information, that's actually not going to be available until you start seeing bookings happen. So that is after 8 a.m. on January 16th. And then it's going to close during the fair, which would allow students to maybe book with someone else. Maybe you're having a conversation with a student and you're like, you know what, you really need to meet Bob. I want you to book on his schedule. Then they have the ability to do that and meet with Bob. So I'll send out this PDF where you can then look and see how appointments look to students. And you can see what students see when they click on your booth. You can use that app, the mobile app, to switch roles, and I'll show you what that would look like in the app. And that way, again, that you're seeing what a student sees and that you're approving of what they see in terms of logo and language. You can download that Excel document of all the schedules. Every schedule is going to be a separate tab. And then there's a link to resumes within that Excel download. And as you are kind of navigating this booking window being open, which is that week leading up to the event, you want to monitor the health of your individual booth. So looking at, oh, my audit schedule is full. I need to create a new audit schedule if I want to continue to attract audit candidates. So, where is your capacity being met? Where are new schedules needing to be added? Where are schedules underperforming? And maybe you don't want to have somebody that's sitting there for 2 hours if they have one candidate. And closer to the fair date, you might start blocking some of those appointment times so that person can control their schedule a little bit more. And that way you're not getting any surprises. You can only see candidates who schedule an appointment with you. As far as I know, there's not a way to search all the candidates that have joined this fair unless they have actually booked an appointment with you. But you can search them on Handshake. Our Beta Office I and RAP students should have public profiles. We encourage students to have public profiles no matter what, just so they can be found by employers. So let's go back and just look at that real quick. So this is obviously the desktop version, but when you are looking at the desktop version, you can look at your employer booth as it would be visible to a student. So a student, I'm under the Auburn company or organization, but they can see all the listings. I can make sure my logos as I would expect it to be. I can also make sure there's a lot of supplemental information under the meetings that you would be able to control through me. So you would send any updates to me. So then you can, again, download any of those interactions. That's when, this is not super full, but you can see when I look at this Excel, all these tabs are my different schedules. And then there's a CV or resume link. And that is where I can look at the resumes for my candidates. So it's not possible at this point to get one big list of all our candidates, but I do think it's easy enough to copy and paste and maybe have, everything roll up into a master tab, but for you to see, okay, this is who Colby's meeting with, this is who Bob's meeting with, and so forth. So that is a really nice, byproduct of a virtual fair is you have so much more information about students electronically than you would have at an in-person fair, unless you have an app like this where you're collecting it. So I think that's kind of the extent of how we access candidate info, other than when I look at this schedule, this Montgomery schedule, and I see there's somebody booked on there, I can click into their booking and I can see information about them. So like, here's their personal information, here's their resume, and then we'll talk more about this rating stuff. But you can click into these individual recruit information screens and see kind of everything about that person in front of them. So there is now, there's a move candidate, so you can move them to a different schedule, or maybe propose to move them. So it says it will be notified of the change. So maybe, okay, that's a thing now. Okay, so let's get back to the technology features. And this is, I'm going to tell you how to use the Career Fair Plus room that is provided through the platform. It's called Whereby. You have pretty much the same functionality that you would in Zoom or Teams or whatever you use. It's just, through the system versus you using your own software. So whatever you're comfortable with, the students will be fine with. They're going to get a direct link to join. So I'm, really am indifferent about whether or not you use this, but I'm going to show you how to use it. So you can see that you can change room settings. You can have a chat. You will have like a waiting room. So a candidate's going to knock before they enter, but they will not see anything about you other than your LinkedIn and whatever's in your profile outside of your email address. As far as I know, they're not going to have access to your email. So we want recruiters to provide an email address through the chat feature. So I would just say, like, at some point during the meeting, just submit your email through that chat and say, hey, just let's keep in touch. Here's my info. And that way a student can kind of screenshot it or write it down and follow up with you. So let's look at what those rooms look like. I'm going to have to turn off my camera to show you this. So I will be hopping on in a different way. Okay, so I'm going to go to this blue join meeting button. And this is very important that we use this before the meeting, because we want to make sure that we give all the approvals, that we know it's not being blocked by our, whatever your IT settings are. So we want to click this pretty much as soon as we have a schedule. So we're going to join the meeting. I can see all of my settings. Join the meeting. So while I'm in here, you can see there's all of the settings, including effects. So I have a blur on. You can also create whatever virtual background you want. There's reactions and so forth. Then down here, I think what's helpful is let's see here, there's a meeting timer that you can show at the top. So we know that if we have 15-minute interaction, like, we're not going over that because we definitely don't want to get anybody off schedule. And the chat feature, you can see this is where I can send my email address to a candidate so they can follow up. And I could end the meeting or leave the room and see who's in the room here. And I can also share the meeting link with people. So let's see here. I can share my screen. That's helpful. And the meeting link, I guess I don't know if you can send it from within the meeting, but you can do that from the schedule page. So let's see what happens on candidate notes. There I am. So you can see that I've knocked, and I'm not going to let myself in because it's going to create a bunch of feedback, but that's what you would actually see that there's the person you're expecting waiting in the waiting room. Hopefully they're going to not be cheesing like that. So, all right. So I can let them in, or I could say, I'm wrapping up another meeting. So that is, I mean, this is you, and you can poke around in here as much as you want before the meet. Like, this is not just available during the actual event. So it's available as soon as you create a schedule, which is nice. I'm gonna exit out of that, but this is where, when I am looking at my schedule, I can add it to my calendar. So that's where you can share it. But I can also go to that schedule and copy that recruiter video room link. So that's where you can invite somebody else. So I'm going to come back and then resume the presentation. So you have rating features that you might have noticed. Those are going to show up on those Excel downloads. So you've got the radio buttons that show no show, move on to the next step. You have a rating system. You can write text notes. Students cannot see these. But you do have the option of downloading the app. You could have multiple screens. You could be doing your ratings on a tablet while you're conducting on a computer, or if you have two screens, have the candidate information on one and have your videos on another. I think that's really helpful to be able to see the resume while you're talking to the student and be able to make notes as needed. So that app does have the availability to change role, so you can see what it looks like as a recruiter and what it looks like as a candidate. So the day of virtual Meet the Firms, I'm gonna have some help offerings from lunchtime as well as during the actual event. You can pop into a Zoom room or text me. I'll give you my information if you have questions for that. And just don't forget that Career Fair Plus is your source for any technical guidance. So if you're testing those video rooms before, like as you're creating schedules and making sure the person who's actually supposed to be in that room is testing it on their computer they're going to use, then it should head off most issues. But support at Career Fair Plus is the way to engage their help, or there's a little chat button in the Career Fair Plus website that you can get immediate help. So if you can't resolve a video issue and you're in the moment, like, just call the recruiter or the recruit, because we don't want to waste time. We don't want to eat up 10 minutes of your 15 minutes trying to figure out what's going on with this video chat, when you could just, have a phone call and then maybe schedule another time. Or you could chat them, hey, why don't you just log into my personal Zoom room if you're trying to use Whereby and don't want to use and want to try something that you're more familiar with. But again, all that testing in advance should head off those issues. So if you're the lead, you are going to create schedules and add team members. You do not have any number that you are restricted to. I would just consider, if you are a returner, how many appointments you had last year, kind of what worked last year. If you're new, maybe start with 2 schedules and go from there. But before 8 a.m. on the day the booking window opens on the 16th, you're going to create a profile. You're going to make sure that your team members are accessing their schedules and customizing their availability. They're testing their room. You're, as the team lead, going to be monitoring the signups, making sure that through that scheduling window, that if you're selling out a certain interview schedules, like if your tax schedule is just gangbusters, then consider creating another tax schedule. And block open spots when the event starts if you do not want somebody to book during the event. That's really important. Because, we don't like surprises a lot of times. So if it's 3:59 and you have a schedule that only has 2 candidates on it, just block the rest. And you can always unblock if there's somebody that kind of crops up that has met with someone else that needs to meet with you. But it might be better so you're not chained to that video room, just making sure that you're not missing somebody. When anybody's sitting around idle, you should be able to anticipate exactly when you're going to be meeting with students. So use your recruiting list that you're going to get on the 16th, the day the booking window opens, to promote your booth. Make sure the students know that you want them to book with you. Mail merge is a great tool for personalizing this outreach to make it a little more appealing to them. Like, oh, wow, I'm being sought after by this employer. So if you have any questions, you can email me, you can contact Career Plus if it's any kind of technical question. And don't forget that the virtual Meet the Firms page has a lot of milestones and some frequently asked questions and helpful topics there too. And just to kind of circle back on what comes over from Handshake, these are the things that should import directly from Handshake, and anything that is a direct import from Handshake, you should be able to change on Handshake and have it flow. And anything that's that supplemental data, that's something that I would be more apt to be able to change for you, including the logo. And sometimes the logo, who knows, like if your logo is just not flowing the way you think it should, I'm happy to help. So anyway, looking forward to the event. Let me know if you have any questions. And the goal is to market to the students the first week of classes, which is the second week of January. So I would just kind of set your personal goal of like, we're going to have everything visible to the students that we want them to see by, the time that classes start back January 9th. And that should be, or maybe it's January 10th. I'm sorry. January 9th is the day before classes. So, but that might be a good milestone to know, like, okay, we're set. The students that are going to start looking at it and we feel good about what they're going to see. So thank you. Looking forward to the event.